Feels like a reckoning while I'm listening to the Reckoner. Let's just cover radio. Let's just start a Radiohead podcast. It's so good. Coming up on Verse, Chorus, Verse, Pablo Honey, Hail to the Thief, and then 3 more albums in the discography. And guess what? We're covering them all tonight. We've done 5 scores at a 9 or above so far. It's not going to get too much lower. Some of you may be wondering why In Rainbows doesn't get its own. Look, we got to do what we got to do. And personally, I have some thoughts about the 2 albums behind me that are going to be able to tango with that album. We got a lot to talk about. Let's do it next. Hi, everybody. I'm DL. I hope you're doing well. I am. I'm listening to Radiohead, so I'm doing okay. Right now, I've got In Rainbows in my head. We are going to start there. We're going to work our way to King of Limbs, Moon-Shaped Pool. That's what we're doing tonight. We're covering the last 3 in the discography of Radiohead. I will do one more Radiohead episode after this one. This is not going to be the last Radiohead episode, and honestly, that one's probably not going to be the last Radiohead episode either. You know, we do our 10 out of 10s. We already covered OK Computer. I'm going to find other ways to cover Hail to the Thief, to cover the Bends, to cover In Rainbows, to cover... Just don't worry. Radiohead's not done. We're just dipping our toe in the moon-shaped pool, if you will. Things are going well for me. Looking to the right, I've got a newsletter here. That's right. I did start a newsletter. I actually started the newsletter with the first Radiohead episode, the very first one, the one that it wasn't glowingly reviewed. I will say that. It wasn't terrible, but it definitely wasn't great. Now, the other Radiohead episodes, they've been a lot more popular. So I figured you wanted me to nerd out. I'm nerding out. That's what I'm doing. But anyway, the newsletter, Last Call. That's right. It is Last Call. Go to Instagram. It is on the bio if you want to join the newsletter. I write a little ditty be on the Saturday before every Monday's episode. Just a little bit of what I wanted to talk about that I didn't, maybe a little personal note there. I give you a little bit of a drink recipe to listen to the episode with if and you're so wanting to, and give you a playlist if you need it, right? Hey, there's going to be a playlist with this one. Maybe you listened to it on Saturday. I hope you did. There's a lot of gold in these 3 albums, and we're going to talk about some of it. Sorry, I had to clean a little bit of that. The newsletter, Last Call. Go to Instagram, check it out. It's easiest to just go to the link tree and click on it there. It's the best place to get it. Or write me, contact@versecourseverse.com. I will send you the link. Either one of those 2. If you're not feeling the social media, which I get, just send me an email. But check out the newsletter. It's fun. And then we can keep you up to date. We obviously don't junk mail you at all, but we can keep you up to date with stuff that's upcoming on the pod. We will at some point. Newsletters are fun. versecourseverse.com. You can go check out the website. But most importantly, as we've started saying this year, if you will, tell a couple friends. You got a buddy that thinks Moonshaped Pool is the best Radiohead album. Hey, maybe that person should check this out. You got any friends that like Radiohead? Have them listen. You know, just tell a couple friends each episode. There's your musical. You are the musical person in your group, right? So every episode there's gonna be some different person, some jagweed that probably likes whatever we're talking about that day. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Okay, sorry. Life's going good. I just got back from Porto, Portugal. Man, does that city, I'm checking out. Is that city my favorite city? I mean, I love me some NOLA. I love me some Seattle. Hard to beat Dublin. Whew, Oslo was amazing, but man, Porto, there's something about Porto. It was great company, it was great food. Everywhere we went was gorgeous. The mountains, the every restaurant was amazing. Um, and it wasn't like, oh, let's go find the good restaurant. It was you walk down the street, you walk into a door that looks kind of like nothing and you eat one of the best meals of your life. You walk into a fucking whiskey bar that has like a shit ton of bourbons and stuff in the middle of fucking Porto. That that place is amazing. Health-wise, you can keep being proud of me. I'm doing amazing. I've lost like 22 pounds or something like that and feeling really good, feeling great. Got more energy, hang out with the kids, jogging in the morning, listening to music. There's something about the music's getting better. I'm listening to, I mean, I still love my Radioheads and stuff, but I'm listening to more positive stuff too. I don't know. It's just things are going well. You know, I'm feeling pretty good lately. I'm not going to complain. Life's okay. So let's listen to some depressing music. But hey, that's the thing about Radiohead, right? Everybody thinks that you got to be some depressing piece of shit if you listen to Radiohead. That's not true. That's not true. You are allowed to get into your depressing feels and still be a positive person. It's an extremely healthy thing to do, in my humble opinion. In this narrator's humble opinion. If you haven't checked out any of the other Radiohead stuff, go back and do it. Like I said, the first one was kind of just a lot of guffawing over how good Radiohead was. Talked a little too much about Creep, uh, but it was still fun. I didn't talk enough about Benz. That's one of my regrets. But hey, this is the beauty of us having one more episode. Is I get to kind of rectify certain things. Like my coverage of the Bends should have been more. As I went on and I did OK Computer and Hail to the Thief, and I realized like shit. Actually, the Bends it's it's pretty important. It's pretty fucking important. But that's why we have the last episode. I get to kind of rectify things, and I will talk about the Bends a little more. There's a couple other things. I'm gonna rank their albums. I'm gonna give you my favorite listing of their albums in a ranking. I'm gonna give you favorite songs. All that's. I'm gonna give you a bunch of good stuff in that last episode. So check out that one. As far as this episode, I don't know how long it's gonna go. It's gonna go for a while because I'm not gonna, I'm not just cutting a bunch of stuff here. If In Rainbows deserves to be talked about, I think for a lot of people, it's their second favorite Radiohead album. Some of you probably first. And King of Limbs, I have thoughts on King of Limbs that a lot of you might not disagree with, or you might agree with as well. And Moonshaped Pool, it is a great fucking album. Like we've got a lot to talk about tonight. We've got a lot to talk about tonight. This episode might be pretty fucking long. I hope you're okay with that. I am. That's what she said. Should we do a little bit of a recap where we've been for anyone joining? Pablo Honey 93. I gave it a 7 out of 10. Gateway drug, fine Brit rock, perfect for its time, with one of the greatest rock songs ever written. It blends in with all of the other stuff. Not that it's bad, but then you got Creep on there. 1995, I gave it a 9 out of 10. In retrospect, may need to be something more like a 9.3 or something like that. That's where they became Radiohead, and man, it's really good. Like I said, I have more to say about that. Hold fast. We'll get there in the next episode. Talk a little more Benz. OK Computer 1997. Yes, indeedy, did I give it a 10 out of 10. I'm being rougher with my 10 out of 10s this year. I got a little bit of guff for not giving Toxicity a 10 out of 10. I gave it a 9.8. Yeah, I'm sure next year I'll be totally different. And then maybe we'll go back and redo Toxicity and I'll give it a 10 out of 10. Anyway, what was I talking about? OK Computer. OK Computer got a 10 out of 10. From me, at least. Right. That was a fun one, though. And I wasn't going to make the other two do a bunch of other stuff, but 10 out of 10, you know, peak guitar Radiohead, some might say. Also, the album that broke Tom York. Kid A, 2000. I gave it a 9.8 out of 10. Put the guitars down, built a new harmonic language from scratch in 2 years, and one of the great acts of artistic reinvention of rock music ever. I've had more time with it. I'm very, very happy with a 9.8. I think out of all of Radiohead's albums, Kid A, I've listened to Kid A most in my life. Kid A it's a very DL album. And I love that. Amnesiac. How about Amnesiac? 2001. I think I gave it an 8.6 or like a 7.5. When I first did it, I raised it later on to an 8.6, I think. Same sessions, different discipline as Kid A. Pyramid Song alone is just kind of, it's like the creep of that album. The gap between the two records wasn't 7.5 and 9.8. And while I think some people view that as cutting room floor, I just don't think that's the case. In fact, Amnesiac has grown on me more since that episode, and it's probably maybe a little bit higher than an 8.6, but I'm going to keep it there. Hail to the Thief, 2003. Hopefully you listen to that. Gave it another 10 out of 10. My favorite album from one of my favorite bands. Top 5 favorite bands, top 5 favorite albums for me of all time. It's the synthesis of everything. Guitar back, electronic texture, modal harmonic thinking, political anger, lullaby for a son. If you haven't heard that episode, go find it. Hail to the Thief, DL's favorite Radiohead album. Who agrees with that? And now, 2007. In Rainbows, right? Before we get to In Rainbows, we got to talk about the most important part of the night. What are we drinking? Well, I told you I'm doing really, really well lately. I'm pretty proud of myself. First off, I've got an energy drink. Here's the one of the top 3 shittiest things about being healthy, and I'll say not. I don't know how much you guys give a shit about this. We were told. We're trying really hard to be a better podcast. Fucking weird, right? But one of the things that is a very consistent feedback is that people want to know more about you and your relationships and who Evil and Rachel and I are to each other and our friendships and that sort of thing and our lives. So that's why I talk about the health shit and all that. One of the top shitty things about getting healthy, I've done really, really well with food, with drink. That's been probably 80% of why I'm feeling so much better, is because I eat really well, I drink really well. But low calorie energy drinks are just the fucking most disgusting things in the world. They are so gross. They're so fucking gross. And for a guy who personally me, I love Red Bull. I love it. Like regular old blue can Red Bull. High calorie, high taurine, high caffeine Red Bull. High sugar. That's one of my favorite drinks. I love it. I love the tardy smarty Red Bull. And instead, you get stuck drinking, like, this is the best one that I've had in a long time. It's Alani Nu. Actually, my brother's wife turned me onto these. We vacation together every summer, and she had these and was saying that they're actually, for energy, they're pretty good. It's only 15 calories, so... And this is by far the best one I've had so far, of the low-cal ones of the... It's still fucking gross, but I'm boring. I'm drinking Michelob Ultra. I'm kind of a lightweight these days, so I've got a couple, get a little buzz going. I feel like Radiohead deserves a little more. Let's see what we got in DL's little grab bag of fun over here. You not see that? That's a 12-year Glenlivet in a fucking... I didn't even know I had that. I guess you gotta do what you gotta do. Look, it's one of my last Radiohead episodes. We'll partake a little bit of this. Glenlivet 12, single malt, Scotch whiskey. Radiohead deserves it. 3 albums. Moonshaped Pool, King of Limbs, In Rainbows. And a little bit of Glenlivet. And some Michelob Ultra to wash it down, Philly. A dog'll hunt. Yeah. Should we do 2007's In Rainbows? I feel like we should. Let's do it. After Hail to the Thief, Radiohead's contract with Parlophone ended, and for the first time in their career, they were a band without a label. Instead of signing immediately, they kind of just sat with the freedom, because Rich and Money and OK Computer and Hail to the Thief did really well because it was after OK Computer and Kid A. Duh. Obviously it was, the sessions were way longer than Hail to the Thieves, which were like 2 weeks, and Kid A's, which they took time. This was still Nigel Godrich, but they really took their time with this, and this wasn't the same anger that they had back in 2003. This wasn't the same pissed off band. This wasn't the same jaded. The fear was gone. All of the Pablo Honey shit went away. All of the OK Computer brokenness went away. Hail to the Thief, I feel like, which is weird because they have come out and said that there were certain things they weren't really happy with Hail to the Thief, with like the track order and a couple things like that. But there wasn't this same fury that was there with Hail to the Thief that there was at this point with In Rainbows. I don't know what they had come to peace with. I don't know, but they just weren't as angry. They went into this wanting to be a little more personal. They wanted to work the interior, and they do this a lot where they kind of change an album where they want to talk about what's going on outside in the world, or they want to talk about what's going on internally because of the world. They kind of swip swap. They always have. I love it. Now here's the great thing about this album. Here's the thing that I don't know how many people remember. I don't know how many people know. If you're not a huge Radiohead fan and you just listen to this because you like us, I know there are some of you. I know there are dozens of us. Dozens. Shout out Arrested Development, right? Bandcamp. We know Bandcamp. We love Bandcamp, right? You ever buy an album on Bandcamp and you get to pick what you pay? Most bands have, like, you have an album that you can pay $21 for, or whatever you want, or more. I don't know if they do the less thing anymore. They used to. Anyway, Radiohead does something that has never been done. Never. They put out In Rainbows, I think it was 2007, right? October 2007. I have notes. I read them sometimes. They put it out on their own website, and they say, pay what you want. You can pay $0 and they will let you download In Rainbows on their website. You can pay $100. You download the same exact album. They said that most people obviously paid $0. I think the average was like somewhere between $5 and $8 after all things considered, because there were a lot of people that paid more. And then I think like I don't remember how much longer it was. The physical 2 months. Yeah, because they did that in October, and then December is when they came out with the physical media, which of course, again, as their agents always hated Radiohead, they fucking hated Radiohead, their labels, because they would do shit like this. And then the physical media comes out and it crushes directly to number 1 immediately. So, it doesn't matter. People are still gonna buy the fucking CD. People are still gonna buy the album. Like, nobody gets this. It's so dumb. They never really have. But yeah, you could in 2007 in October, you could have paid $0 and Radiohead would have just said, here's our album. Radiohead trusted their audience and their fans, and their fans showed up because it's fucking Radiohead, right? In Rainbows has this very um warm reputation. I'm going to use the word warm a lot when I'm talking about In Rainbows. And I think that the thing about In Rainbows and Warmth is it's seen two different ways by Radiohead fans. And I'll be honest, I think for me for a while, being the elitist dark, you know, loser idiot that I am, felt a certain way. And that is, I think that this album is extremely accessible for a Radiohead album because of that warmth, because of there's a little more gentleness, but not like a dark, disparaging gentleness. We're talking about songs like, what's a good example? House of Cards. It's just a super warm, super welcoming. You can put this on. This is one of the albums, one of the Radiohead albums that I can put on in the living room, and the whole family's like, "Yeah, all right, okay." Um, I think that for some reason that was kind of seen as a negative thing by their fans. Fans like me earlier, not now. I think they want jarring from Radiohead. They want to be ripped out of their comfort. They want to feel darkness, and they want to feel sadness, and they want that depression pushed on them. And this didn't really give them that. So I think for some fans, this was seen as kind of a bad turn. But I I think for the smart fans, I think for and even after a while starting to warm up to it, I think it maybe for some of us it took a while to realize that no, this isn't like radio friendly Radiohead. It's just a warmer Radiohead. It's just kind of melt in your couch Radiohead, not because you're on shrooms and terrified of what's happening in your head, but maybe you just with a whiskey, and it's just nice. And you're realizing, wait, is Radiohead actually the type of band that's telling me that things are going to be okay? It's kind of what it feels like within Rainbows. Warmth is not easier than coldness. Generosity is a lot harder than being a dick. And I don't I think that some of the emotions that they tap into with this album, I think some of the stuff they're doing here is a lot more difficult than what they're doing in Kid A specifically, or Hail to the Thief, which is my favorite Radiohead album. You look at you look at a song like Reckoner. Reckoner is a great example of what they do on this album. It's Reckoner is this just brutally beautiful song. But if you really listen to what the guitar's doing, it's just like a basic major pentatonic scale. It's a folk scale. It's children's song stuff. It's super, super basic. I think that it leads to an openness. It's an ease of like, I'm not going to try to shock you with the chords. Like Greenwood's not trying to trick you the way that he does a lot of times. Openness, I guess, warmth. He wants it to be easy to to like this song. It's easy to. You don't get that often from Radiohead. You have Nude. Nude is another perfect example of doing what Kid A doesn't do. I talked a lot about it. We talked about Kid A, about these lack of resolutions, but Nude, which is the B major, uh, it resolves. It consistently resolves. Even when it changes going into the verse, that resolves. It keeps resolving. It keeps making you happy, and it keeps making you realize that things are going to be okay until the end, which is the most resolving resolution that I feel like Radiohead's ever done. They're wanting you to feel comfortable, and that's not to say that it isn't still brutal. This we're talking about resolving. The last song is Videotape, and Videotape isn't doing anything weird. I mean, you have like the reverse drums and things like that, but Videotape closes on a C major, yeah, C major piano, boom, 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 but no ornamentation, no craziness, no fuzz. Guitar's not trying to argue with the piano. It's clean, it's clear, it's simple, and it is major, and it's fucking heartbreaking. It's so fucking heartbreaking. And you can't it's one of those Radiohead things where it feels like it's just like forcing you in your seat to just face everything that you've ever not wanted to face in a song. It's the most simple sophistication that only Radiohead can do. And it's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. Let's talk about popular consensus and In Rainbows, because I feel like In Rainbows is popularity speaking. I feel like if you talk to most people that are fans of Radiohead or aware of Radiohead, are going to tell you that their favorite album is either OK Computer or In Rainbows. And I don't think that's like I think even musical elitists are that, the people that are trying to, well, I want to be different. I want King of Limbs to be. I think even those people are going to tell you that In Rainbows and OK Computer, maybe Ben's are going to be one of their favorites. And I wouldn't argue that this is their second best album. I wouldn't argue that. And it's not, I wouldn't say that I would argue it because this is a challenging album, or it's a complicated album, or they're trying to, what would I say here? Ambition. They're not being ambitious with this album. They're not trying, Kid A is their ambition album. King of Limbs is their ambition album. We'll talk about that. I mean, they've always had major ambition, and obviously even songs like in OK Computer and here, they're being very ambitious, but this is just cohesive. This is just whatever, I think it's like 50 minutes of, there's not everything that they're trying to do, they do perfectly in this album. They hit everything they're trying to hit. Every song delivers exactly what they're trying to deliver. It belongs right where it should be in the album. It's so cohesive. You turn this record on, and it's one of those that you're so fucking bummed when it's done. And you catch yourself thinking over and over and over while you're listening to it, like, fuck, this is so good. This is so good. And yeah, I don't think it's because of ambition. I think it's just, this is a band that's proven to themselves everything that they wanted to prove to themselves. And now they're just saying, like, let's write a really good fucking album. And that's what In Rainbows is. It's not ambition. It's just good writing, good drums, good fucking guitar work. And I don't mean that as in, I hope people don't think what I'm saying is that this album is great because it's super accessible. That's not, I mean, those two aren't, accessible doesn't equal greatness. I think this album just happens to be you can be accessible and brilliant at the same time. And I think that In Rainbows is that. It's almost like In Rainbows is the too easy of an answer. It's In Rainbows is the OK Computer of Radiohead albums. How about that? Is that good? let's do. I think I've done okay with In Rainbows. Should we go into some awards and categories? Wow. Sorry. I'm just looking through my notes, and I have 4 paragraphs here on the Reckoner. I'm a fucking nerd, you guys. I'm talking about the 4th, 7th scale degrees, harmonic tension, Western tonal music. You guys don't care about all that. What's a good, the choice to be open is only available to an artist who has established the alternative. That is the whole In Rainbows argument in one sentence. Scratch that. Don't do that. I'll just say, I'm going to go back to take everything out before I said, let's go to awards and categories. I'm going to cap this off. I think the basis of what I want to say on In Rainbows is really just, me talking about Reckoner and Kid A, Amnesiac, the comparison, Hail to the Thief exists in a relationship of tension, that sort of thing. I think the choice to be open is only available to an artist who established. I think the choice to be open is only available to an artist who has established the alternative. Um, in Rainbows works because of Radiohead's entire discography. The warmth is not simple. Um, it's earned openness, I guess. You can't have In Rainbows without Kid A for me. You can't have Reckoner without everything in its right place. And the consonants, you can't have In Rainbows without Kid A. You can't have Reckoner without what? Like everything in its right, everything in its right place. The consonants works because you had dissonance first. That, to me, that's In Rainbows. Okay. Should we get to awards and categories? Do I need to talk about this Western tonal shit? Pentatonic scale? I don't think so. You guys don't give a shit. 70 million Jackson fans can't be wrong. Should we do awards and categories? Are we ready for this? 70 million Jackson fans can't be wrong. Videotape, which is the closing track, which is the most stripped back thing on the album. It's just piano, voice, C major. It's the reverse drums. Other than that, not much production. I think a lot of critics put this in the middle of the pack. I think it's the most important track. The lyrics are about dying. Recording a message on a videotape for people that you're leaving behind. The harmonic neutrality in a song about somebody dying. It's a devastatingly awesome choice. He could have made that dark and dissonant. He put it on a C major and it's still just crushing. And that's fucking Radiohead, man. I think Videotape is the reason that the album is what it is, and it's the last thing you reach, and it's just Radiohead, bro. Should we do the What's Love Got to Do with It award? I'm predisposed to love this album, but in a different way than I'm predisposed to loving like Hail to the Thief. Hail to the Thief is personal. It's 20 years of attachment. I can't separate it from specific times in my life. In Rainbows, I love more cleanly. It's more objective for me. It's I don't know if that's possible with music. I hear it and I don't have to fight my way into an opinion. I'm kind of easy with it. The opinion's just there. There's a more trustworthy love for this album. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like, do I love Hail to the Thief because there was this time and this place when in Rainbows, it's just, it's just fucking good, man. It's a good answer. Thanks. You're welcome. Ozzy Osbourne Bathead Award. It's the pay what you want release, right? Like the confidence that requires, the audacity, the spit in the face of the labels that must have just fucking had aneurysms. Like how many people on the label were fired when the CEO found out that Radiohead had put out the album 2 months prior for fucking free on their website. It's just gold. I always want to say that, this is actually not that bad. And then the 2 seconds after hit. And then you have that like Splenda sugar thing in your mouth and you got to wash it down with beer or scotch or whatever. We'll do scotch later. I got in a conversation with this British dude in Porto, and next year I'm doing a trip with my mama to Scotland. We're doing Edinburgh. I'm working in Edinburgh. She's meeting me there, and then we're gonna do a week trip up to the Highlands. And my mom wants to see the Kelpies and that sort of thing. It's gonna be fun anyway. he was asking if I was going, gonna be fun. I said, yeah. And he's like, are you a whiskey guy? I said, love whiskey. Can't wait to go have some scotch. And he got super mad. It's like, there's no such thing as scotch. It's Scottish whiskey. But what was really funny is he was trying to teach me fucking shit about whiskey for like 15 minutes. He's going on this big diatribe like he's a British dude, you know? You fucking British dudes. Fuck, you guys can talk about how right you are and how smart you are. But what was great is this doctor came down she's from Texas. I love her. She's awesome. And she had a fucking bottle of Woodford Reserve with her because that's just the type of girl she is. And she poured, there were like a bunch of us in the lobby. Not many of us wanted bourbon. The Americans, like non-Americans don't love bourbon typically. But he was into it. It's like, yeah, I'll have a bourbon. And he fucking coughed his face off when he took that bourbon. I don't know if that dude had ever had fucking whiskey in his life. It was hilarious. I don't know what I was talking about. Does it matter? The Ozzy Osbourne Bathead Award is the fucking it's it. Overrated, underrated, properly rated. I think this is properly rated. This is probably the one Radiohead album I can say that about without qualification, right? The critics got this right. The fans got this right. This is a great album. Everybody said it was a great album. And there wasn't a lot of contesting it. There wasn't a lot of, I think even the fans that were, I expected more from this. I don't think that was loud. I don't think it lasted long. I think it definitely died down. You absolutely don't hear Radiohead fans nowadays being like, oh, fucking In Rainbows, whatever. No, if anything, like with me, it's just with time, it's aged like amazing wine. I think my only addition is the people who rated it the top specifically because it's the most accessible are wrong. That's it. I've said it a couple times in this. I just want to punch that through. I'm a little bit offended that this is always called the most accessible Radiohead album. I mean, fucking Pablo Honey is accessible as shit. I don't know. It's just warm, right? It's warm. The John Prine Best Lyric Award. The John Prine Best Lyric Award in the Reckoner, because we separate like ripples on a blank shore. Here's the thing about that line. I talked about what the Reckoner is as far as the guitar and how it's just this major pentatonic, but it's this really warm harmonic environment, right? But the imagery is water when you're talking about separate like ripples on a blank shore. This is an album about two people specifically grieving becoming apart. It's the tale as old as time of people being loving each other, being in love, or whatever you want to say. I don't know which phase, but realizing that they're not going to be a part of each other's lives anymore. And it's backed by this imagery of the water through this warm musical environment. It's the line is it is so rare to hear a line that works so perfectly with the music. And I don't know if he does that on purpose. I don't know if you can do that on purpose. The DL in me thinks I'm probably just reading into that, but I mean, come on. Don't you get chills thinking about that? Because I sure as fuck do. John Prine probably fucking loved it, right? Like the gap between the music and the lyric is John Prine standard. It's a John Prine award. What about the John Popper Best Hook Award? I'm going Weird Fishes arpeggi. The guitar arpeggio, right? You got to do it. That opens the track, runs underneath everything for the entire fucking runtime. It's note by note. Take that out. But Greenwood and O'Brien are doing this cool like interlocking arpeggio thing. Do that, and it creates this texture where you can't really tell where the individual notes are happening and where the harmonic contact is happening. Your ears can't really fully separate it. You hear chords, but are they individual notes? Stuff like that is just so good. It's just so awesome, and they're so good at it. That's the hook. It's the it's the harmonic content. It's not really a melody you can hum. That's why Radiohead's so cool. The hook is a texture. The Eddie Van Halen Award, John Greenwood's string arrangement in All I Need. The strings don't even enter until like the 2-minute mark, and they kind of blend. You don't even realize they've arrived until they've been there because of how well they blend in. It reminds me a lot of How to Disappear Completely, and they get louder and louder and denser, and then the track ends and you realize that you've been inside something that's been growing, and suddenly it's fucking gone and the silence is deafening. And that's Radiohead. I think songs like that get talked about so much for York's vocals, and they're some of the greatest instrumental performances, orchestral or otherwise, in music. It's just good. Leave that out. Cut out whenever I say it's just good. Jesus Christ. Surfer Rosa Award. I like the sentence that I wrote. In Rainbow sequences like a complete emotional argument. 15 Steps opens up with complexity, 5/4 time signature. Your body, it takes a while to kind of lock into it, and then what I love about the beginning is it does tell you that while this is gonna be warm, might even be a little bit fun, is not gonna be passive listening. You aren't gonna be passive listening to this shit. Body Snatchers comes after that, which is like the closest thing to conventional rock on this album that you're going to get in a very, very good way. And then Nude, which is fucking absolutely gorgeous. And then the album exhales and you're off to Weird Fishes. And then you keep going into what else? Reckoner, which if you have the vinyl, that closes side one, which is perfect. It's like openly beautiful track. Why not end it with that? And then side 2, you're going to end it with videotapes. House of Cards, Jigsaw falling on place, videotapes, the album. Yes. And then if you notice towards the end, it just gets quieter and quieter as it goes. And it doesn't end with a climax. It ends with videotape. And that's the correct way to end this. You just arrive somewhere quiet and you stay there. This isn't the sequencing of this album is amazing. It's amazing. Okay, hard one now. Time of Your Life Award. Worst track on the album. This one is easy for me because there's only one song on this album. This one's easy for me because there's only one song on this album that I don't completely love, and I don't want to skip it when it's on. Like when I'm playing it on the record, I don't want to skip it, but it doesn't. It just doesn't punch me. It doesn't. And that's House of Cards. It's a genuinely good song. The guitar is distinctive. Lyrics are specific. It's just the one track where I feel like it's pausing instead of advancing. I feel like this album is like, holy shit, House of Cards, holy shit kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like Faust Arp is 70 seconds and moves the album forward way more than fucking House of Cards does in 4 minutes or whatever it is. I think it's smart where this was sequenced, but on this album where it's placed, I noticed it, and I think in an amazing album, there is a very, very easy worst track, and it is House of Cards. That's how I feel. Sorry, I'm getting down. You know why? Because I'm listening to Jigsaw Falling Into Place, which comes out after House of Cards, which is a fucking banger. Speaking of bangers, should we get to the best 3 songs on this album? I think we should. What do you think they're going to be? Okay. What do you think my favorite songs are going to be? I'm going to tell you what they're going to be. In fact, before we kick that off, I'm going to do listener question of the night. It is, This and this alone. I think a lot of people see In Rainbows as a top 3 or 2 Radiohead album. Why is that for you? Do you think it is simply because of accessibility, or do you think that this was Radiohead, a well-experienced band that had really figured it out to a point of, oh yeah, we can write a perfect album? I want to know if it's the easy one or if it is really the brilliant one. And actually, if any of you like it more than OK Computer, tell me. My number 3 is Weird Fishes, Arpeggi. First off, the bass entrance that turns the harmonic, like the bass entrance is so fucking awesome with York's vocals. And then the ending that doesn't fade, it's just gone. The absinthe, it's just the compositional confidence in that song is fucking amazing. I'm mad Nude isn't on here. It's not. My number 2 is Reckner. It just, it's the earned consonants. That's it's, you know, it is a beautiful, terrible, amazingly beady, awesome fucking song. I think it's one of the tracks that we can point to years removed to say that is Radiohead. That is why Radiohead is one of the greatest bands that ever lived. But my number 1, I've already talked about it a lot, and it's a shame because there's a lot of stuff I haven't talked on this album all I need is fucking brilliant. 15 Steps is great. Body Snatchers is a fucking jam. What else have I not talked about? I think that's it, right? Faustarp is even good, even though it's short and weird. I still love it. This whole album is fantastic. But Videotape, I've talked about it and I've talked about it. It's just what they do in this song about the clarity of darkness and death in a fucking C major. It's just fucking brilliant. It's so brilliant, you guys. It's so brilliant. Videotape is one of my favorite Radiohead songs of all time. Okay. And that's it. I like I said, I'm bummed that Nude wasn't on here. I mean, maybe I can talk about Nude a little bit and why I fucking love it so much. Hang on, let me turn it on. I'm going to turn Nude on and I'm going to talk about it. I mean, that fucking beginning, that whatever they did with the reversing of, I'm guessing it's a reverse of Tom York's vocals into the B major. This is, first of all, this is not this is a super basic key. Like what Tom York is doing with it obviously is not basic. It's all in like the upper extension of the chord, which is pretty rare. That doesn't usually happen when you're writing a song, but he just keeps sitting on the high extensions of the chord and sustaining them and sitting on them and just Tom Yorking them. Maybe that's the verb. But what I love is that the resolution actually happens while Tom York is kind of talking about how this is never going to happen. Like I said, it's almost like excessive resolution, even though they do. There's switches from the verse to the chorus. There's not really a chorus in this, but the switches aren't a typical resolution. I don't think that's by accident. I don't think it's ever really by accident from them. I feel like it's the harmonic structure. The harmonic structure enacts the lyrical content, and that's extremely sophisticated composition. That's content that requires genuine harmonic thinking. This isn't just, I'm going to write a sad song in a minor key. This is like engineering a specific emotional experience through majors and resolutions, and when those resolutions are coming, what the lyrics are. Nude is 4 minutes of that. Like, go and listen to when he starts his moans and listen to the words that he's saying. It's so technically precise, and I'm telling you, it's not an accident, and it just doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. It changes every 20 seconds. Suddenly there's a new thing, and then you get to the end where he does the upward scaling resolution into the should that have been my number one song? What do I score in Rainbows? Oh, I've been rough on the 10 out of 10s, right? And I'm sorry. I really am. It's a 10 out of 10. In Rainbows is a 10 out of 10. This is the most cohesive album in their entire catalog. This, the warmth is earned. The simplicity, the simplicity is sophistication. Also videotapes on it. It's a fucking 10 out of 10. This album is, I really do think it is their most cohesive album in all of their content. So yeah, look at the fucking lineup of those songs. House of Cards is the worst song on the album of crazily brilliant writing. I think In Rainbows is a 10 out of 10. That's my actual listener question of the night. I think most people probably think that OK Computer is Radiohead's best album. Kid A is a brilliant album. In Rainbows is maybe the most easily accessible album. I feel like that's how the three that most people think of Radiohead. But if you had to only give one of those a 10 out of 10, and I want you to don't just pick OK Computer because it's fucking OK Computer. Don't you? Well, I was there and it was amazing. And no, which one actually, if you could only give one that perfect 10 out of 10 score, is it OK Computer? Is it? Anyway, it's a 10 out of 10. Okay. I'm quite a ways in, and that's one album down. Look, In Rainbows deserved a long time. It did, and it got it, and it got its 10 out of 10. Okay, let's regroup. How about 2011 King of Limbs? How about 2011? How about the King of Limbs? King of Limbs came out in 2011. It was named after an oak tree in Wiltshire, some ancient oak tree, which is great, I guess. 37 minutes long, 8 tracks. It was announced on a Wednesday, came out on a Friday. No lead single, no fucking, promo, no nothing. It just fucking appeared. Here's King of Limbs. Radiohead has a new album. Yep, in 2 days. Here it is. Pretty cool. Slight, transitional, minor, Radiohead. These are the words that appear in a 2000. Let me do that over. Slight, transitional, minor, Radiohead. These are the words that appear in a lot of the 2011 reviews. Pitchfork gave it an 8.1, which sounds fine until you know that Pablo Honey was an 8.4, according to them. People heard 37 minutes of dense, layered, rhythmically unusual music and said it felt unfinished. They were wrong in a way that I think is specifically interesting. They were wrong because this album's sophistication is not immediately audible. The sophistication is below the surface. It's in the rhythm. It's in the way that the tracks are constructed. It's intensely awesome music. I'm going to nerd out a lot on King of Limbs. So hold fast. Let's spend some time on what King of Limbs is actually doing, because I think it's a critical failure and a failure of listening that's fixable by just fucking listening to it. That's what I don't understand is I think people just kind of tried to check this out and weren't into it. Super weird. I do think that it has what's the term I'm looking for, where people do go back to it years and years later and they like it more. It's a polyrhythmic album, and that's not an explanation of the vibe. That's what this album is. It's what's happening on pretty much every single track. It's multiple different rhythmic patterns working with each other, against each other, whatever you want. 6/7, bro. This isn't new in music. This is very, West Africa and Steve Reich and all these like minimalist composers have been doing it for. They're not the first ones to do this. I mean, jazz has been doing this with bebop, and I think that's kind of maybe that's the problem. Maybe this is Radiohead's bebop album. That's why people fucking hate it. Or do they hate it? I think they kind of do hate it. What Radiohead does with King of Limbs is they bring this polyrhythmic, like bebop context into rock. And there's not a single moment on the album that it sounds like they're trying to be one of these traditions. It just sounds like Radiohead. And I think that's a compositional achievement. The second thing that this album does a lot that I think should actually get respect is the loop-based that I think people don't like from a band like Radiohead. They don't want loop-based composition. I think for a band like Radiohead, it sounds really fucking cool, though. King of Limbs, songs like that are not built for verse, chorus, verse, chorus, bridge, verse, structure, trademark, Scotch. No verse, chorus, verse here. I guess we'll finish it with Moonshaped Pool. Radiohead did a lot of the loop-based production with live music, and I think that kind of blurs the line between electronic and actual musician. And I don't know, I feel like it makes people uncomfortable. I also don't think people understand what's going on in the recording. The loops are not backing tracks the band is playing over. The live playing and the programming are the live playing and the programming are co-equal layers. The live playing and the programming are co-equal players that are being programmed together. This is structural innovation. This is structural innovation that people don't understand, and I think particularly in 2011 definitely didn't understand and didn't see. And maybe this might be excuses, because I've always been the type of person that when people start trying to defend an album going this deep into it, that it's just like, dude, fucking is it good to listen to or is it not? And here's my problem is there are like, do you not like jazz? Do you not like bebop? Because then maybe you don't like this type of stuff. But I don't understand how you can listen to a song like Separator and not get super into it. It's fucking good stuff, man. And if it's not for you because it's not so much rock, because this is the most out there non-rock that Radiohead was ever trying to be, then that's fine. But it's not just bullshit. There's actually a lot of this is one of those albums that it's just, I kind of want to, maybe you just don't get it. Maybe you don't get it. Maybe you're an idiot. And then the other thing, I've touched on two things that this album's trying to do. The third thing, and I think this is mostly Phil Selway, right? Yeah, Phil Selway. I'm really bad with names, you guys. Metric modulation. So metric modulation, and I barely understand it enough to describe it because I'm terrible at math. But it's essentially when you have one time signature in a song and then you basically subdivide it within that song and it kind of turns it into a different time signature. They're doing that a lot in this. Jazz drummers do it a lot. Rock drummers don't, because it doesn't fucking make sense for rock music. It just doesn't. But what I like is it's pretty much predominantly the percussion on this album. They're not doing it like the metrics aren't being done throughout the other instruments are holding fast. It's the percussion that's doing all the modulation. So while the main instruments are staying the same, the vocals are doing the same thing, the structure of the percussion is starting to change, and it has changed, and it hasn't even registered in your brain yet that it has, until suddenly you're thrown off. I mean, these are advanced techniques in any aspect. For a rock album, it's kind of unprecedented. And it goes, again, another one of those things that goes kind of unnoticed in critical conversation. It's which is a failure. It is. I just watched Rick Beato, who Evil and I all often pass stuff from one or another. I just love, Uncle Rick. Rick Beato has a YouTube. He's a producer. He's worked with a ton of huge musicians. He was a musician. Brilliant, understands music, can read music, like the basic things that are very rare nowadays. We were watching this fucking New York Times had these 4 writers, critics that came out with it was like the 8 best songwriters alive, or the 20 or something like that. And my God, is it a really bad list? So fucking bad. Anyway, none of them studied music. None of them, you don't have to have a degree in music to like music. That's not at all what this podcast is about. But it sometimes with some of these more complex albums, sometimes, with jazz, with things like that, it helps to actually understand music, to understand theory. And I think these are the sort of albums that are missed by critics like that, by dipshit critics that just go off on how they hate Billy Joel, which I don't really like Billy Joel either, but I'm not going to say that he's not a fucking brilliant songwriter, because I'm not a moron. Let's talk about polyrhythms. We can talk about Bloom. Number 1. That's the purest example of this. So Bloom is operating, I think it starts on 10/4. Yeah, 10/4, 10 beats to the measure, right? There we go. This is not intuitive. 10/4 is a weird fucking beat. And when it comes on. It comes on and it's Jesus Christ, what the fuck? And this is one of the things that, if you're trying to get into Radiohead, don't fucking start with King of Limbs. If you're trying to get into jams, if you're trying to get into jazz, don't start with fucking Miles Davis, okay? If you're trying to get into Radiohead, don't start with the King of Limbs, because you're going to open it up, Bloom's going to come on, and you're going to say, oh, no, thank you. But the bass in there, and I think it might even be a synthesizer, the bass is going on a 4/4. So the bass is going on the most basic of basic beats. Colin Greenwood's guitar is doing something different. I couldn't really tell what it was. I think I even looked online. I think it's 6/4. I think. And then you have Phil Selway's fucking drums, which are just all over, like the 4/4, the 10/4, the 6. They're just fucking all over it. And what it means for practicality is that there is no single moment in Bloom where all of the rhythmic patterns are going to land simultaneously. It's always going to feel out of place, and your brain is always kind of looking for the downbeat, and it's you feel like a fucking moron. So it's like, that refusal of resolution with Kid A rhythmically, kind of. And that is what brings that kind of physical sensation of uncomfortability, which again is what Radiohead is trying to do. I don't think it's them being weird for the sake of being weird. I think it's a compositional decision, because they want you in a specific emotional state. I think they want you to be in suspension. They want you to be in suspense. They want you to be in suspense. Or you can be in suspension. I guess it works. It both works. Lightweight. Can't find a place to put my scotch down. Polyrhythm it's a feeling. It's a feeling in music. These are the sort of episodes that I'd love to have Sven here, because Sven could go off for fucking 20 minutes straight about it. Now that you kind of understand that a little bit, go listen to the song Little by Little. You have the bass on one very basic meter, one very awesome building meter. Drum programming is in a completely other one. And then Greenwood is playing this deceptively simple figure that cycles kind of between them both, but it doesn't quite land. And then York's vocals are super simple 4/4, but they never land where the downbeat is going to be. So it sounds like somebody who's singing along with the song that isn't, like, not even the same room, not even synchronized with it. But emotionally, that's exactly what the lyrics are about in Little by Little. Someone who's present but not fully committed. Rhythmic dissonance, emotional discontent. And this is what I mean when I say that the sophistication of the composition exists below the surface in Radiohead and in King of Limbs beyond below. I think this is the I frequently say with Radiohead that you feel the music before you understand it. King of Limbs is the king of that, if you will. Let's I want to compare Kid A to King of Limbs because critics compared King of Limbs unfavorably to Kid A constantly. 2011. I understand the comparison. Both albums use electronic processes heavily. Both use like non-conventional rhythm. Both feel like way more personal, interior, whatever you want to call it, than OK Computer. But I think the comparison undersells both of them massively. Kid A's innovation is harmonic. Kid A's innovation is harmonic. It replaces functional chords with modality, and the rhythm on Kid A is actually genuinely more conventional than the harmony is. It's the harmony that does all the weird shit in Kid A. You know, Idiotech, that's 4 on the floor, man. Everything in its right place. You know, do 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 do. They're straightforward rhythms. Maybe that's what they're going for. Maybe they did that on purpose. Maybe they wanted the weirdness on King of Limbs to be the rhythm. Maybe they knew what they were doing. I don't know. To me, they're just different albums solving different problems. King of Limbs is definitely not a lesser Kid A. It's an album about rhythm in the way that Kid A was an album about harmony. And I don't know. I feel like saying that King of Limbs is, I feel like it's saying a painting of the sea isn't as good as a painting of the mountains. It's a completely, I guess, apples to oranges would be a better way to put that. It's just a different fucking subject. Okay. Right? Is this a crazy fucking tangent? Is it? King of Limbs is a weird album. I'm going to give you a weird explanation for it, okay? I talked a little bit about Little by Little, and I want to talk a little more about Little by Little. I'm going to turn it on, play it here. I think it's a top 5 Radiohead song for me. We'll find out in the next episode, but I want to work my way through it and see if it holds up out loud. I had planned on doing this. I did the same thing with Nude. I'm going to do this. I think I might do it with another song in this little bad boy here. You wanted a fucking nerd. You got it. You fucking Radiohead people. You don't test me. Okay? God damn it. So there's a texture here that's immediately identifiable and uncomfortable, but not in a way that's unpleasant. It's kind of, you know, in creepy movies when there's maybe the shower mist or it's like frosted glass and you're seeing somebody walk by, but you're not really seeing just more of like a silhouette sort of thing. That's kind of how that progression and percussion feels to me. The lyrics are about self-awareness. The lyrics are about self-awareness in the worst possible form. The kind where you know exactly what you're doing wrong and you fucking do it anyway. I'm such a tease, terrible flirt. It's not a confession that seeks absolution. It's an observation delivered kind of flatly, kind of without remorse, which is honest, and there's dissonance behind it, and the music is always slightly not landing. It's the sound of something or someone that kind of knows they're not really showing up. The guitar is this real harmonic gray area. It's not really major. It's not really minor. It's hard to even describe what Greenwood is doing. I don't even know if I can figure it out. It's not really committed. It's a lot like the lyrics. So there you go. I think it's just everything on it. It's, you know, rhythm, harmony, lyrics. There's no gap between the form and the content. It's doing everything perfectly. It's Radiohead. And it's great. I don't know. Let's get to awards and categories, shall we? This album's fucking me up. 70 Million Jackson fans can't be wrong. I think for this one, the Codex, the piano ballad in the middle, I think people will probably think of this more of a breather, like, you know, conventional slow song kind of thing. But the sustain in it, Goddard's production, subtle reverb, Sleepwalkers Who Lost Their Way, kind of a sound that, I don't know, moving without knowing where you're going kind of feel in a song, almost like improvising, not at all improvised sort of stuff. And I think coming after Bloom and what's the Morning Mr. Magpie it's this genuine harmonic rest. It's definitely not a lesser track. I think it makes the complexity around it legible. Like Codex is the reason Little by Little hits as hard as it does. That's how I'd put it. What's love got to do with it? I've been on an island about this album for 15 years, and I've been very defensive about it for most of that time because the consensus is consistently wrong about King of Limbs. Nobody talks about King of Limbs. Nobody likes King of Limbs. I do feel like it's grown a little more popular over the last couple of years, but still, the predisposition here is not the warm personal attachment of Hell to the Thief. It's not the warmth of In Rainbows. It's being told that something is not very good over and over and over, and getting more and more mad, trying to figure out why the fuck people don't like this more. And because of that, spoilers. This is a high scored album for me, and maybe that's why. Maybe sometimes an album needs a defender. This album deserves to be seen as a better album than it is. Join Me on My Island, and maybe the score. Maybe I wouldn't feel like I'd have to give it a higher. Maybe I'd give it an even higher score. Join Me on the Island just because it's fun. It's fun to like King of Limbs. Album's fucking rad. Underrated, properly rated. This is criminally underrated. It's the most underrated album in the radio. Radiohead is a beloved band. King of Limbs is, I feel like, the only album that is consistently kind of worst one in the group. I think the critical consensus failed this album by listening to the wrong things. There's a small reassessment happening. I still think that it's, it hasn't reached the broader culture. I'll say that. Influences and influences for King of Limbs. This is, I put Steve Reich, phase music, rhythmic patterns. Bloom, it's super Reich. The influences are really hard to trace and stuff like that. And York never came out and said like what he was listening to during it. So I don't have a great answer for it. I do love the Little by Little, I'm such a tease, I'm such a flirt stuff, the delivery, the flat delivery, and the kind of, it just goes with the song. I explained it already. It's a John Prine kind of standard lyric, the least decorative, it has the most content. That's the John Prine thing. I feel like that whole thing is by design, and that's the hook, right? Take that out. That's the hook out. That's the standard, is what I was trying to say. John Popper, best hook in King of Limbs. The drum pattern in Little by Little. Are you getting it here? I know the hook is usually melodic, but you go start Little by Little and just listen to it. The moment when you first feel that polyrhythmic texture and and you start dancing and your body's trying to lock into it and your ears are finding the beat. And then there's this perpetual search for the hook. And it's because of that revolving pattern, and it doesn't resolve, but it doesn't really need to. You never quite find it. That's by design, and that's the hook. That's by design. That's my King of the Limbs. King of the Limbs? Fucking A, I must be drunk. The Eddie Van Halen Award, Phil Selway's drumming across the entire fucking album, specifically the technical achievement of playing live drums over drum programming in different meters without losing his fucking mind or the beat. He deserves all the credit in this. Okay. This is so much harder this is so hard, and it's even so much harder than it sounds. Like, it sounds hard, right? No, it's harder. Could you I don't even know. I don't know if they tracked it for him, or I'd like to get a real percussion expert in and talk to them about this album. That would be really fun, because he plays across these programming bar lines, landing beats and spaces between program beats, and I don't know. He's like reinforcing the drum machine and playing against it and holding two different rhythmic grids. It's just fucking amazing. Phil Selway is one of the most underrated drummers in fucking rock music, and this album proves that. You go through one full like I've said this. What did I say? I forgot what the last thing I said this for. But just go through this album and just listen to what fucking Phil Selway's doing. And also just listen. Tell me if a fucking minor Radiohead album is so dumb. Surfer Rosa Award. The sequencing. So King of Limbs sequences in two movements. First four tracks. They have all the polyrhythmic language, right? Yes. Into feral, which is super abstract, right? Processed vocals, all that weird shit. And then Lotus Flower arrives and it's a complete pivot. More conventional. You can lock into it. Melody is clear, expressive, and it's kind of the hinge between the difficult first movement and the next a little more comfortable movement. And then Separator closes the album with a guitar figure and major, and then you think it over, and then you think it's over, and then you're wrong, and then the album closes kind of in this open question, which brings it into a lot of the process of this album, which is a cycle. And if you listen to the very end of this album and you let the album end, it kind of cycles, and that is kind of the correct album. Fucking A. That is the correct ending for this album. Just it doesn't quite resolve. It just lends itself to that cycle. Let's talk about the worst track on the album. I want to make the distinction I always make. It's not necessarily a bad song, but it is one that's, even for me, look, sometimes bebop isn't for me. Sometimes even Miles Davis, I'm like, can you fucking like calm down? Feral is doing something specific, like with the processed vocal samples and the texture, and building the track almost entirely from the percussive language. It's pretty fucking semantic, and it's the one track where it's the experience is overdone by what they're trying to do. It's, I respect what they're going for, but this is the point in the album where it's like, okay, all right, you won, I give up, you poly beat me. Can I hear something radio friendly now? But let's do the three best songs on the album, okay? Because that's more fun. Number 3, Separator, the last track on the album, closing track. I think it's the one album where it's just major the whole time, and it's a little simpler. Super clean, super bright. Again, pretty unique for this album. I love the ending of the "if you think it's over, you're wrong," kind of the direct question to, Tom York is basically talking to the listener. I don't know. This it's 33 minutes of trying to challenge you to, like, I dare you to fucking listen to this. And then all of a sudden in the end, it's kind of an open, emotional, easy listening sort of thing that closes it, and it feels genuine, and I like it. What about number 2? How about Bloom? How about the opening track? You like that one? This is the purest statement of what this album is trying to do rhythmically. It shouldn't be as pretty as it is. It should just be a fucking mess. There's a ton of suspension. Like, it feels like you're drowning. It just opens the album's argument completely and immediately. Everything that follows is yep, this is what you've gotten into. And then my favorite song on the album, I've talked about. It's Little by Little. I think it's one of the better Radiohead songs that was ever written. Everything on it, the lyrics, the bass, obviously Selway. I'm putting it there and I'm leaving it there. It's one of the best. Okay, let's score King of Limbs. King of Limbs, there is like 1.2 songs that I'm not a huge fan of. There's so much brilliance on this, and it's such a unique album. I gave it a 9.2. By far their most underrated. Innovation. It's my island. I've been on this island for a long time and I like it. 9.2. Okay, that's King of Limbs. And yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know if I'm dead wrong and they're just trying too hard. And this is it. Moonshaped Pool, 2016. Moonshaped Pool came out in May 2016. It was preceded by two things. York's divorce from his partner of 23 years, Rachel Owens, who was diagnosed with cancer and died in December of 2016, 7 months after the album's release, and the end of the long creative period that had produced everything from Kid A through King of Limbs. I want to be careful about the biographical connection here, the way that I always try to be, the way that we try to be on the pod. This wasn't, Rachel died of cancer, grief, all that stuff. But this album wasn't. This album was about losing a partner. Pretty fucking 23 years, I think I said. Yeah, that's tough shit. True Love Waits had existed as a live song since like 95. And for whatever reason, Tom York had refused to put it on a to put it on an album for that long. And then after the divorce, he did put it on Moonshaped Pool and track. Beautiful, beautiful piano composition track, and it works, and that's why it works. And I guess smart that he waited, makes sense, and fitting that it's on here. Trying to dissect, I've been a fan of Moonshaped Pool since it came out. I've been a fan of every Radiohead album since it came out. I really liked Moonshaped Pool immediately, and I don't think, spoilers, the first song on the album, I don't think it's just because of the first, within the first 10 seconds you're hooked. But while I was dissecting this, the thing that kept coming back and coming back and coming back to me was, this feels like a grown-up Kid A, an adult Kid A. Kid A is the adolescent trying to deal with certain things, and this is the adult version of that. I want to explain what I mean, because I don't mean it as like a ranking thing. Kid A is an album about disassociation. It's about being in the middle of a thing and not being able to understand that. Numbness, depression, I'm not here, this isn't happening, disassociation. It's somebody that I think what was he, 31 or whatever, and not able to handle the life that he was currently in. We've all been there, and maybe not at that specific age, but we've all been there at some point, where you're just really unhappy in your skin, in your life, in everything. It's a pretty common thing for people to feel at least once in their life. Moonshaped Pool is an album of somebody that's a lot older and able to handle the acute depression. That the depression is maybe duller because you've aged, because you are now mature enough to know that life goes on, life finds a way. You've been through that. I don't know what happens to us as we get older, besides we just die inside. But the jadedness and the ability to get over something tends to be better. I used to be absolute mess when certain things happened with them, and I'm better at dealing with it now. Not amazing, but better. Pain is quieter. It's less disorienting, and I think that's what this is, a less disorienting way to look at grief, kind of. Johnny Greenwood's strings are the key here. What Johnny Greenwood's doing with his arrangements is where Kid A, he was shooting for cluster chords and trying to confuse you and make you uncomfortable, adjacent layers. This one, he's being lush. He's adding 11ths, he's adding ninths, he's adding 13ths. He's trying to make you full and make you at peace. And it's not really about resolving or not resolving. It can be it's still ambiguous. You're talking about songs like Glass Eyes, where not necessarily resolution happening through it, but you're not left feeling jarred. You're not left feeling uncomfortable. You still feel okay. And there are aspects to songs like that that still do feel kid A-ish, you know, uh, in a cold, dark room with your mind trying to figure shit out. I already kind of said what I wanted to about why this album punches you in the face, and it's because the first song is Burn the Witch, which again, here we have a later album of Radiohead track that I think is might be a top it's definitely top 10 Radiohead song, maybe top 5 in Burn the Witch. It's so well structured, it's very dramatic, is the least subtle track, and I think that's why it works so well. I think it is when I think Burn the Witch is the type of song that Radiohead fans want. I think it's the type of track that I really Radiohead people probably look at and say, like, "Come on," and Radiohead fans look at and say, "That's why Radiohead is one of the best bands of all time." York said, and we've talked about the Psycho score before. York said that this Burn the Witch was written he was listening to a lot of Bernard Herrmann, who wrote, Psycho and I think the Vertigo score, but he worked a lot with Hitchcock, and Burn the Witch is very Hitchcockian. It has that super, super staccato string thing kicking at the very beginning, and yes, the strings do begin to get off the staccato and become a little more lush. Maybe lush is gonna be my word of the day for Moon-Shaped Pool. But the staccato-ness of the strings is really what brings this amazing not only does it bring this amazing rhythm to the song, but when they do stop doing it and they go into just actual playing of the notes, that texture is so much more powerful. When Tom starts into the burn, the long burn, and the chords are actually playing, it just makes it that much more augmented and serious and powerful. Yeah, powerful. And you have this the lyrics of Burn the Witch. I mean, it's not very subtle. Again, it's about mob mentality. It's about communities that are enforcing things through fear and burning the witch, cheer the gallows, and that staccato tension, that Hitchcockian thing, really brings it you feel that tension and that eeriness and the feeling of something that's inevitable. Take that off. The feeling that something's inevitable. This is I think it's the most cinematic, I guess cinematic is the right word, track that Radiohead's really ever come out with. And I don't know if it's to a Moon-Shaped Pool's detriment or not. I still haven't been able to figure that out as I listened this time and studied, because Burn the Witch is such a different song than the rest of the album. Burn the Witch is this outward looking, tense song about tense things. And then the rest of the album is pretty quiet and calm and looking inward. I guess the sequencing is correct. Or maybe they just wrote Burn the Witch and it was such a good song that they were like, well, it doesn't really fit on this album, but we can't fucking leave it off because it's one of the best songs we've ever written. I don't know. I don't, it blends well with the first couple songs, but I don't feel like Burn the Witch fits on this album. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me know. I did do there was some research I found that was really cool on Johnny Greenwood's string writing. In Kid A, when he worked on How to Disappear Completely and whatever other ones that he does the arrangements for, he studied a lot of post-war European classical music, like Kritzhoff, and I can't find it in my notes, a couple other things, but cluster chords, adjacent notes, not conventional harmony. The string writing on Moon-Shaped Pool is very, very different. He's using a lot of extended harmonies. He's building a lot on the thirds and the fifths, on the more simple stuff. I guess he was way more into like late romantical orchestral writings, and he was listening to a lot of jazz too, which I guess makes sense going back to King Limbs as well. A little more complex, a little more dense, but a little more not major. but less fuck with your head. It's the opposite of the immediate unease that he was trying to build with Kid A. Was he doesn't necessarily want to make sure that you get the resolution in Moonshaped Pool, but he more wanted to make sure that you felt dense richness in the compositions. The difference between acute and chronic is what I wrote. I like that. I don't know. Crisis, Crisis versus been there, done that kind of thing. Yeah, I like the sound of that. We'll go with that. I'm pretty good with it. Should we do awards and categories? I think we can, right? I didn't talk about that many tracks, did I? Here's the thing about Moonshaped Pool that I think works to its detriment. Songs 1, 2, and 3 on Moonshaped Pool are so fucking good that it's really hard to compare it to the rest of the album. And that I'm not saying that like the rest of the album isn't good. I think Identikit is great. Present Tense, True Love Waits, like their songs are great on Moonshaped Pool, but Burn the Witch, Daydreaming, and Deck's Dark as your 1, 2, 3, that's so hard to fucking get past, dude, because those songs are unreal. They're so good. And you get past that 3, and then you get to 4, which it's a very pretty song. It's a good song in Desert Island Disc, but it kind of throws you off, and you're kind of looking for those 3-track highs again, and you don't really get it. Now, I listened to this straight through. I listened to it on shuffle. I had an easier time with the other tracks on shuffle. It's when you're listening, like on vinyl, when you're listening to it on vinyl, and I'll listen to it all the way through and I'll love it. But it is, man, the first 12 minutes, it's a lot different than the 10 minutes after that. And then you kind of get it again. It's not the same. It's not as palatable just front to back as some of the other Radiohead albums are. Let's go to awards and categories. Okay. 70 million Jackson fans can't be wrong. Where do I stand? I don't know I don't really know what the consensus is on Moonshaped Pool. I don't really know if people loved this or they didn't love it. I know that people didn't think that there was I don't think a lot of people thought there was an amazing album in this one or King of Limbs. I know that the Numbers, which is the full critics kind of treated it as the album's most conventional track and like a orchestral pop song. I think it's actually really ambitious. If you go back and you listen to the Numbers, the chord progression is really simple, but the emotionality in it and the rhythms in it are not that simple. I think that there's a lot of complexity and it kind of lets itself breathe. I think Numbers, the track would be where I'd be if I were to give somebody a song on that album, it would be that one, more to kind of challenge them. And from what I read, Numbers is not one of the favorite tracks on it. And I think it's kind of awesome. What's love got to do with it? I don't know. I feel like you've seen a pattern here, right? I am predisposed to liking this album for reasons that are, this is an album about getting older and specific weights of things that have been going on for a long time. And you've gotten older and you're starting to figure yourself out, and you're kind of becoming okay with certain things about yourself and understanding that you're not perfect and being okay with it. And that doesn't mean that you're not, less guilty when you fuck up, or you're not, it doesn't take away those feelings, but you're starting to realize certain things about life that you just can't realize when you're 25. This is a good album for that. And I think that's very important for motherfuckers my age. Overrated, underrated, properly rated. I think slightly underrated. I think this album did a lot better than King of Limbs as far as critics and fans. I think this was treated more as like a later album. Yeah, that's good, as opposed to an actual achievement, which I do think it is. I think again, like I think King of Limbs is gaining more ground. I think people are slowly starting to come around to it more, maybe just because it's popular to like what was once unliked. But I think in like 10 more years, this is going to be considered a much better album. I think you're going to have songs like Daydreaming really, really come up in a Radiohead discography discussion as one of the more refined, perfect songs that Radiohead did in Radiohead quality that only Radiohead can do. Drink every time he says Radiohead. I shall. I haven't finished off my scotch for Moonshaped Pool, so I'll do that now. John Prine Best Lyric Award. God, that's good. I haven't had scotch in a long time. John Prine Best Lyric Award. True love waits. I'll drown my beliefs to have you be in peace. I'll dress like your niece and wash your swollen feet. Again, I talked about already. Ton York has been playing that since 95, and he refused to record it for like 25 years. Not even like a demo, nothing. Not just for a record, but for anything. The reason that it works on this album at the end of the album in a piano arrangement instead of an acoustic guitar. Sorry, I'm reading. I'm much worse when I'm reading notes. The lyrics are about waiting, it's gone on too long feeling, past the point of things making sense. I feel like we've all been there with a relationship, right? Drowning in your beliefs, dressing like your niece. These aren't romantic gestures. These are gestures of someone who's given up on themselves in tiny increments. And that is a feeling that I feel like people understand and are familiar with and are grossed out by. And it's just super relatable. He waited, I don't know why there's waiting in this song. He waited so long to do it. That is John Prine's standard at its most extreme, right? What have I kept saying? The least decoration and most meaning. Yeah. John Popper Best Hook Award. Burn the Witch when the full orchestra arrives. This is not the staccato. This is after the staccato build. First 2 minutes are great. Everything's ticking, percussive, clipping. And then suddenly you get bow hair hitting something tight and dry. That's what she said, to something enormous. That's what she said. And there's that arrival of warmth. That's what she said. That after after it builds that tension, that Hitchcockian tension, just so much. That's what she said. This is so into warmth inside something that has been deliberately withholding it. How about that? Is that the best That's What She Said of all time? So many, I'm pretty happy with it. But no, this song has your nervous system in this state of mild alert for 2 minutes, and then all of a sudden it's like just wow, I peed, and there you go. There's nothing else like this in a Radiohead catalog. There's nothing. I don't know that there's another song like this out there. Period. Not just the Radiohead catalog. Not sure if you can tell that I like this song. Eddie Van Halen Award. Stop me if you've heard this one. Johnny Greenwood's full string orchestration across the album. Look, it's not easy to arrange music, okay? It really isn't. But specifically, like, go listen to Daydreaming. What he's doing in Daydreaming, the complexity in the individual chord tones are fucking great. And you compare that to a song like The Numbers, and I don't know, but Daydreaming is the album's longest track, and it's the most complex, and I think it's fucking peak Greenwood. You start with the solo piano, a lot of sustained notes. Strings enter gradually, not all at once, like one section at a time. Lower register going up. There's triads and there's scale degrees and there's like clear paths, but it's not, I don't know what chord it is. It's a major chord, and he's adding stuff on. Like I said, he does a lot of adding on the ninths and the 11ths on this to make it really rich, to make it really lush, but it's not really moving towards anything. It's just existing. And then all of a sudden you start to notice the orchestra almost moving in opposite directions simultaneously through the middle. I think it's around the middle of the song. Like the cellos are going down while the violins are going up, or ascending and descending. Sorry. Sorry, music nerds. And it makes the spread where the chords are just getting wider and wider, and it's more spacious, and it's getting more intense. And it's weird because it's almost counterintuitive, kind of making it feel like something vast. And York's vocals are like pitch shifted in it, which isn't, which is kind of weird for that type of song. And then in the last part, his voice is it's almost like indistinguishable from what the strings are actually doing. Kind of a Kid A thing, right? And then the track ends by reversing its own audio, and it starts getting louder instead of quieter, and you hear inhales instead of exhales, and it's ending in these weird, I don't know, inhalations. I don't know if that's a word. And that's their production choice on this, and it's kind of cool, because I don't know, it just keeps grief doesn't exhale, just keeps drawing inward, and that's what makes the song so fucking awesome. That was holy fuck, that was a tangent. What was I? Anyway, Eddie Van Halen, Johnny Greenwood's orchestration. You wanted a fucking Radiohead nerd. Surfer Rosa were the sequencing. I've already talked about it. Look, you open up with Burn the Witch, and then you go into Daydream. It's hard. It's hard to come back from that. I just, I love that True Love Waits closes the album. I do. I think that fits. I don't know that the rest of the album can keep up with the beginning and the end. That's what I'll say. Least favorite track of the album for me, Dark Island Dusk. That's so not the name of it. Desert Island Disc I think Desert Island Disc is just too much of a drop off from the first 3 songs. That's all. Full Stop is, it's very groove based. It's fucking 6 minutes, and I don't know how much of that works, but I like it. There's something about Full Stop that I really like. I think I would go with hesitantly Desert Island Disc. But let's get to the favorite songs on the album, shall we? I think we should. So Dex Dark to me is number 3. I think you're going to see what I'm going to do here, but that is a traditional Radiohead badass fucking song where it starts with the light, major, high pianos, a little bit of jingle, pretty Tom York lyrics. But then towards the end, you start hearing a little augmentation, and it starts getting a little weird, and you start hearing the low piano chords, and it starts getting a little angry and a little uneasy. And it's fucking awesome. It's 4 minutes of brilliance. Dex Dark that's a fucking Radiohead song. Number 3 is Daydreaming. I already talked about it a lot. It's 6 minutes of sustained harmonic ambiguity is what I put. You don't get the moans and stuff, like the creepy moans and stuff that you get in Dex Dark, but it still is doing a lot to kind of fuck with your head. Maybe in a little sadder, less creepier way, right? And then number 1, come on, not a shocker, right? It's the Herman homage. That's the Herman homage. I like that. It's amazing. It's the standard. This Burn the Witch is the shit. Burn the Witch it's an elite song. It's a 13 out of 10. Okay. Moonshaped Pool. I gave this, what's my score? It's an 8.9. It's the adult Kid A. It's the, chronic rather than acute grief, and lush. It's an 8.9 lushness. That is Moonshaped Pool, King of Limbs, and In Rainbows. 8 studio albums, and this is where we ended up. Pablo Honey, 97 out of 10. Gateway Drug. Creep Alone makes it brilliant. Benz, 9 out of 10. I think we'll cover more of that. OK Computer, 10 out of 10. Peak Guitar Radiohead, one of the most important albums of a couple generations, right? Kid A, 2000, super high, 9.8-ish. One of the greatest artistic reinventions. Amnesiac, 8.6. It's really fucking good. I keep listening to it. It's really fucking good. Hail to the Thief, 10 out of 10. One of my favorite albums of all time. In Rainbows, 10 out of 10. the most cohesive album in Radiohead's catalog, the earned warmth, as I said. King of Limbs, 9.2, by far the most underrated album in their catalog. Innovative, with a couple of unreal songs on it. And Moonshaped Pool, an 8.9. Grief settled into texture is what I wrote here. 7 albums at 8.6 or above. One band. This is the argument. That's fucking Radiohead. I've given King of Limbs a 9.2 and said Little by Little might be a top 5 Radiohead song. I want to hear from people that think King of Limbs belongs near the bottom of the discography. Make the case. I'm genuinely curious if you just think King of Limbs is a bunch of gobbledygook. I want to hear from anyone else that has a top 5 song on the Radiohead list that would be on Moonshaped Pool, King of Limbs. Give me, one of your favorite of the later years. It's really easy to karma police your top 5 because they're brilliant songs. But what do you have on King of Limbs, Moonshaped Pool that what's surprising? Give me a surprising best Radiohead song. Firstchorusfirst.com, right? Do it. Go to and sign up to my lose netter. Sign up to my lose netter. Go to Instagram, go to the link in the bio, our link tree, and the first thing you see is the newsletter. You can sign up. You put your email in. You get an email from me every Saturday. Okay? In Rainbows, King of Limbs, Moonshaped Pool, 10, 9.2, 8.9. 8 albums, 6 at 9 or above. One band that has spent 40 years willing to build a new language every time the old one felt like a costume. That's Radiohead. That's the Radiohead arc. I have one more episode, okay? Things I wish I could do better. Things I feel like I kind of blew. I blew past. I didn't do good enough. That's what I'm coming back for. Stay with me for one more. Join us next week. However, I don't know what I'm doing, but you can still join. Let's find out, shall we? Tinker Tailor Soldier is an amazing song too, just so you know. Love it. So, quite a while back, we did a DL's 10 out of 10 for OK Computer, and we also recorded another one that I I think was kind of a birthed by OK Computer type of album. Next week, it's another DL's 10 out of 10. You could say it's kind of Radiohead related because I do think that they are extremely inspired by Radiohead. But join us next week when Rachel, Evil, and I talk Absolution by Muse. That will be fun. Firstchorusfirst.com at firstchorusfirstpod. Go do the newsletter. Read it. I don't know why it matters, but it does. It gets me your email, I guess. I don't know. Don't worry. I'm not going to steal I wouldn't even know where to start. Radiohead, tell me what you think. We'll do one more episode. We'll close it off. I'll miss the boys. I'll miss listening to them. I love you guys. It's been real. Good night and good luck.